Okay, welcome everybody to this episode of the Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. We are just excited to have everybody join us today for yet another great discussion on leadership topics that matter most today. I'd like to introduce our guests today, our panelists. They come from different corners of the business world and different corners of the country today. So let's get into it. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce Dave Hogue. He's the Senior Vice President and CIO at OCC here in Chicago. Welcome, Dave.
Thank you.
I'd also like to introduce Whaley Shao from, he's the CCO at Omada Health in San Francisco. Welcome, Whaley.
Thanks for having me.
And finally, I'd like to introduce Amy Langen. She's the Chief Marketing Officer at KitCheck. She is coming to us from Florida. KitCheck is based in Washington, D.C. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about our evolving business world in a post-pandemic environment. And how we navigate this change as leaders is extremely important. But today we're going to spend some time looking up and out beyond this change in kind of our new reality. What is the new norm? And to facilitate that discussion, I'd like to introduce our facilitator for today, Kathy Ock. She's a partner here at Thoughtium. Kathy will be leading the discussion. Before we get into it, a couple of housekeeping items. For those of you who have joined the webinar room, you all are welcome to ask questions of our panelists throughout the discussion. You can do so by putting your questions in the chat box, and we will reserve about 15 or 20 minutes towards the end of the discussion to handle those questions. For those of you who are joining us from our live streams, we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It is so good to see you all. And as you all have some thoughts, comments, or even questions for our panelists, please drop them in the comments. We'll be monitoring those throughout for our panelists. Again, we'll reserve the last 15 or 20 minutes for questions. So I am really, really excited about this discussion. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Kathy to get us started. Thank you, Kathy.
Thanks, Anthony. Welcome to our panelists and also to our listeners. Thank you all for joining us today. We are really excited about the topic and the guests that we have to share their thoughts and perspectives with all of you. Over the last 6 to 8 weeks, many of us have been living in a very different world. We have been working out of our homes and engaging with people in virtual ways on very different platforms than what we're used to. And I know as leaders, we've had challenges during that time. So before we get into the questions, maybe you can share a little bit about your leadership role today and one piece of good news, and then we'll dive right into some of the challenges you faced and the lessons you've learned. So Amy, maybe we'll start with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about your role at KitCheck and maybe share something that is positive and upbeat?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm delighted to be here. As Kathy has mentioned, I am the Chief Commercial Officer for KitCheck, which, as Anthony mentioned, is in Washington, D.C. We're a high-growth company. We've been in business since 2012. We have over 500 hospital pharmacists that use our technology today. I oversee 5 people that are dispersed throughout the United States as we speak. And as I mentioned, I'm coming to you from sunny Sarasota, Florida. I think some of the things that we're dealing with right now have been exciting for us as we're in this med tech space. And what I've been doing is really trying to understand, with the help of my team, we've got to kind of go back and look at the buying journey of our customer right now, because most of our customers are inside the hospital. And so we've really enjoyed kind of really rethinking and reinventing ourselves. And so working with my team to come up with those types of solutions has really been, I got to tell you, energizing to say the least. As far as sharing some good news, I'm delighted to tell you that my mother-in-law just got out of the hospital. She unfortunately did have the virus. Yeah, I know, Whaley, that's awesome. Yay. And what's even more fun about this is she's turning 93 in 2 weeks. So go Sally. Wow. Yeah, that's my good news.
Wonderful. Great news.
That's great.
Thank you. Okay, Dave, maybe a little bit about your role and some good news.
Sure. I'm the CIO of the Options Clearing Corporation, OCC for short. What we do is every put and call option that's traded on all the equity markets eventually ends up in our organizations, and we're the ones who make sure that when it comes time to sell that stock at that given strike price or buy that stock at a given strike price, that the market operates in an effective and efficient way, and we stand behind those trades and make sure that everything works as planned. So, the safeguard, the integrity of the market is a simple way that we think of it. It's an exciting time at OCC. We're going through a radical transformation in our culture. We're reinventing not only our technology stack, but our culture, our processes. We're implementing, new practices around agile delivery and CI/CD delivery pipelines. We're moving to the cloud with all of our core processing infrastructure. And I'm excited because that will make us the first systemically important financial market utility to ever achieve that outcome. So it's a lot of work ahead of us, but the payoff, I think, will be fantastic in terms of resiliency and our support for markets. So I'm pretty excited about the changes going on at OCC right now. Some good news, I think that it's easy to get caught up in the challenges of everything that's going on and the work from home. I think that, I was walking with my wife the other day and we were talking about how, much difficult it is about the kids having their sports and everything. And I said, on the flip side, I've had more dinners with my family at the dinner table in the last 2 months than I have, I think, in the last 10 years. And, I'm probably not alone in having that experience. And it's just been, it's easy to look at some of the challenges and get caught up in that. But I think there's really been some good news and good experiences that we've all been able to have as a result of this situation.
For sure.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Okay, Whaley, how about you in terms of your background and your role, as well as some good news?
Yeah, absolutely. And hello, everyone out there. Anthony, Kathy from Thoughtium, thanks for having me join you guys today. It's humbling and I'm honored to be here. So what do? I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Omada Health. Omada Health has been in the, I believe, enviable position pre-pandemic and even more so post-pandemic of being in the business of digital healthcare. And so we actually focus on delivering personalized, customized plans at scale, leveraging all of the data insights and that come from technology. So we marry technology plus human care, and we call that digital care made human. We focus in a number of chronic diseases, and they're the ones that have been challenging for all of us around the world, like high blood pressure, diabetes, stress, anxiety, depression, and also are finding incredible relevance, of course, today, given some of those same people that we treat and we help are unfortunately at greater risk if they contract COVID-19. So we're right now in an exciting, really hard, but exciting, relevant period for our organization. We're pivoting and transforming every day to meet the evolving and changing needs of people here in the United States, especially given the pandemic. And so that's what we do. And we're incredibly fortunate and humbled to play that role and do what we can, especially now more than ever. In terms of one of the kind of good things or fun things or whatever, I mean, Dave, your story about like spending time having dinner with the family is like totally resonating with me. We were joking, and I suspect this is true for everyone, is like the other good thing is like my dog is like the healthiest dog on the planet right now. She's being walked like 4 or 5 times a day. She's like so happy. Everybody's at home and like her family's around her. And so like, this whole pandemic thing for my dog has been just a complete 100% upside. So not to make light of what's going on, but she is a part of the family, so I consider that a good thing.
Yeah, it's great. It's a dog's world, right?
It is a dog's world.
Definitely is.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's great. Okay, thanks for that bit of background. Very helpful to understand each of your roles, and it sounds like there's so much going on in your different organizations. Dave, maybe we'll start with you. In the financial world, there's been so much volatility, and I know you're really at the intersection of finances and technology, and what's going on all the time is changing and shifting. I'm just wondering what has been most challenging for you, and maybe you could share a lesson or two that you've learned in taking those challenges on.
Sure. So from a technology perspective, it's super important that we remain resilient. And so a lot of the preparedness that we had done As far as the volatility and the work from home shifts, we were well positioned to handle that. And dare I say, those were almost boring transitions for us because of the playbooks and runbooks we had in place. So from a technology perspective and a shift of the organization, this has been a fairly, straightforward time for us. The real challenges have become, that more than ever as a leader, it's not about employees or staff numbers, or it's about managing the whole person. The individuals who work for us, they are not just somebody who comes into the office every day and plugs away at that program or on that spreadsheet. They're actually people who have home lives and kids and dogs that they need to walk. And so embracing that as part of your leadership style, I think has always been important, but it's even more so in these times. And so maybe historically you could walk down the hallway and bop into somebody's cube and say, hey, what are you doing today? How's your family doing? And have that kind of non-level based discussion. It's not a status meeting. It's just an informal chat to check in with individuals. And so one of the things I observed early on is that last loss of connectivity with staff at all levels. I still have my direct report meetings. I still have my status meetings. So there's plenty of interaction going on. But that odd, random one-off meeting with a staffer that you haven't talked to in maybe 2 months, was missing. And so I've, encouraged my staff and myself who have been doing this of, randomly scheduling meetings with anybody and everybody throughout the organization. And so I suspect at times it might be traumatic for some of my staff members. Why is the CIO calling me? They get a half-hour call, but truly it's been just opportunities to reach out and say, how are you doing? How's your family? How's your, I called the guy from the help desk the other day. And it wasn't for any production issues or any problems. It was just, hey, you've been doing good work. I can see it. I'm getting accolades from the staff and having that fiber, that connectivity with the person, again, at all levels of the organization, that was really something that all of our run books didn't prepare us for. Yeah. We didn't anticipate that part of the exercise. And so, recognizing that challenge, bringing that into our communication strategy, rolling that across our managers, I think that would probably be the thing that we learned the most and needed to respond to as a result of the crisis.
Yeah.
Hey,
very
Dave,
interesting.
Kathy, I'm sorry to interject. Can I ask Dave, it sounds like you're doing the skip level thing, talking to folks. Do you think you'll continue to do that once everything, quote unquote, gets back to more normal?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what, I've always been pretty good about walking the floor and picking your random person and just stopping in and seeing how they're doing. And usually I do a little reconnaissance ahead of time so I know, what their work is and who they've been interfacing with so it can have a meaningful dialogue. But I'd say the difference is now it's a bit more formal. The remote has meant that I've got to throw a calendar event on there and I got to put up a WebEx meeting or a phone number or something like that. The informality has been lost. So, I think that skip meetings are important, but I think it's even beyond just sort of the formal skip level. It's that connectivity of the guy in the break room or the gal in the break room and just, taking time during your lunch and sitting down with them and chatting as two people who happen to work in the same organization. I think that's such an important activity for all leaders to engage in. And I just had to put a more formal spin on it, unfortunately, during these times.
If
I think what you said, oh, sorry. Yeah, jump in, Amy.
Piggyback on that a little bit. So, at KidCheck, I'm actually the grandma of the organization. I'm probably the second oldest person at our company. I think the average age is probably 28 years old, my hand to God. And so when you live in Washington, D.C., and they were used to coming into an office and interacting with each other, it was kind of like part of their social life too. And now we're asking these young guys and gals to go back into their 500 square foot apartment because it's so expensive in DC, living with two other people who are also having to home office. Those were things we definitely did not anticipate. But one of the things we did, this is what I want to share that has been so much fun for all of us is, again, these are young people. They were used to going to happy hour on Friday and meeting up with their buddies and the people in work. We decided to do virtual happy hour every Friday. So every Friday we do virtual happy hour. And I thought this is going to be a disaster, a total disaster. It's now the point like how it is with you, with the 4 or the 5 of us. We're like, talking all over each other and trying to, get in. But it's been so much fun. I can't even tell you. So if you guys aren't doing that, I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Are you inviting HR to those?
Yeah, no, they're the ones who started it, believe it or not. She started it. So, yeah.
Yeah, love that.
HR usually leads those.
They're a bunch of party animals deep down.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think one of the interesting things that you pointed out, Dave, is that those calls and conversations that you're talking about are not necessarily task driven. You know, they're not about, I need help with X, or I really need to talk to you about Y. It's, I just wanted to check in. And I think we've seen that on our own team. You're just having calls with people or conversations to see how they are doing. And I think in our pre-COVID world, that was pretty rare because people were running so fast and so hard. And I think that has been much, at least in what we've seen, it's been much more the case in the world that we've been in, where we don't have those same opportunities to bump into each other. So we have to figure out how to create them. And they're not always focused on a business issue or a challenge that we're dealing with. So I think that's really interesting. Whaley, we'd love to have you come into the conversation about what you have been challenged by. I know you said you're transforming every day. That sounds exhausting, very challenging. And I know there's been a lot in all of that, and you've been very close to the pandemic itself in terms of your business and what you do. So I'd love to just hear your thoughts about what has been most challenging and then a lesson or two that you've learned along the way.
Yeah, great. I'm still learning, just like every day. Every day I wake up and the world seems like it's like shifted on its axis 1 degree, and I'm always playing catch up. But if I kind of reflect and think about, you know, a couple of things, you know, one of them is, you know, we are, whether we like it or not, and don't like to use the words because of the stress that comes with it, we are kind of in a bit of a crisis right now. And that requires a different kind, a different style, and a different brand of leadership, in my opinion. And one of the things that I think is not too dissimilar to what Dave has said is, like, I think this is the last time, or this is the last thing we should be doing as leaders is sitting up on our leadership C-suite perch and watching kind of the battlefield, as it were, as it unfolds. And in fact, you know, what I've been doing and what a number of our leaders have been doing and is kind of like getting our hands dirty, rolling up our sleeves, and really doing the work, digging the trenches shoulder to shoulder with employees on the front line, whether they're our direct level down or the one below that or the one below that, because people are working so hard to meet customer needs, especially given the important mission that we have. And so I find myself in one meeting in the morning talking about, okay, hey, what's our COVID-19 kind of business continuity plan? And then I go to the next meeting about, you know, sitting with our frontline marketing folks saying, okay, hey, let's look at the copy and the message that we're going out. And hey, what about this program? And can we tweak it like that? And oh, Whaley, no, you can't do that operationally. We've got some privacy issues. Okay, well, how do we work together? Okay, I got that ball as the CCO. I'll go run that down for you. So really being in the trenches, rolling up your sleeves, shoulder to shoulder. And the benefit of that really is not only obviously the morale and just kind of being in it, but, you know, because things are changing so quickly, you know, I can't afford for the report on the front line to get to that layer of management, then the next layer of management, and then finally me, because by the time I get it, things have changed the next day. And so the benefits are real for me as a leader. The other thing in a moment of crisis I've reflected on as well is this concept of clarity and certainty. People are striving and they need information. They need to know the state of the company, what's happening, what are we doing, what are we not doing, are we still doing that? Or now that, you know, it's kind of in the middle of this in the pandemic, we should be doing this. And it's all about this concept of, you know, you should always strive to be, you know, have clarity and certainty. Clarity is kind of like what exactly are you doing? Exactly. The certainty is, when are you doing it? And if you can deliver both those things in a time of crisis, people really appreciate it. But if you can't, then you should provide one or the other. So it's kind of like, hey, we're not quite sure. We're still evaluating scenarios. But what I can tell you is by June 15th, we will have made a decision so that people at least have one part of that equation and they find it soothing. Because if they don't, what do? We've all seen it. People begin to fill in the gaps. They create their own narratives. And then you've got this thing going on that you have to spend time unraveling. So this concept of clarity and certainty, I feel like is at a premium right now for us.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, our senior leaders, we have a twice a week meeting where we present updates on what's going on throughout COVID-19 and how people are responding and what we are hearing and what it means to us. And I'll tell you, 9 times out of 10, that meeting is, well, we don't really have any updates. We're still uncertain because we don't have direction here or don't have direction there. And I'm finding staff is responding very positively to this, just by having us communicate that we still don't know is better than the silence and sitting there and not getting out there. And so, the communications, where you can provide clarity, even though it's uncertain, hey, we want to return back to the office, but we don't know when, is a fine message and is actually super valuable to the organization.
I agree with that too. I can tell you that what I found interesting is that when we first got into this whole remote working situation, a lot of us were still trying to figure out, what do you do? I mean, we've never been in this situation or this kind of crisis. And it was, at first it felt like this just kind of open brainstorm session, and it drove everybody crazy. And so it was interesting to see the young people say, no, give us direction. We need direction right now. Not giving us direction, we're not surviving, we're not doing well. So we've had that same type of experience too.
Yeah, I mean, in the moment of crisis, right, the premium on decisiveness in action is the killer.
I wasn't prepared for it.
Yeah, people just want to know, what is it that we need to do right now?
Yes.
Because the time to have that meeting and gain alignment and all that, it just ends up, by the time you get there, it's kind of like things have changed. Or you miss the opportunity, or it's snowballed into something else. And so that's where this, I think, kind of this clarity, certainty piece is so important. It's like, hey, we're going to do this. We're not quite sure when, but we're going to figure out the trigger to do that. Everybody start working on that. Okay. And then we work on the certainty piece in terms of exactly when the trigger is and when it will happen. I feel gives people at least a framework from within to operate.
Definitely. I know our CEO every day, he writes a letter every day, just letting people know how he's feeling, how the business is going, where we are with our customers. And it goes a long way. It really does.
Yeah. Good idea.
I think to your point, Whaley, even the time frame in which you're focused. So, we were doing we've been looking a month ahead. And when we got into COVID, we started shortening it to a week. And even just taking it a week at a time, if we can look at the week ahead and plan that out, and then on that Thursday or Friday, look ahead to the next week. Yes, you have the long-term plan, but you have the drill down into the short term, and that seems to really help people an awful lot as well.
Yeah, great advice. Totally agree.
Yes. So Amy, we'd love to have you come in terms of challenges and lessons learned. I know there's been a lot going on, and it's interesting how technology is so much a part of each one of your worlds, and it shows up in different ways. So in the commercial and the technology space, not only internally, but also with your customers, what have you been challenged by and how have you worked through that?
Exactly. Again, the good news for us is, we still are able to do deals with our customers. The challenge that we've had, though, is once we do the deal is onboarding our customer. In the past, this was a real high touch. We'd send a team into the hospital, get everybody all set up with the technology that needed to be, connected here and connected there. So we can't do that because our customers they're the hospital and we're not allowed to go into the hospital. So we had to really step back and think about how are we going to do this remotely, and what's the kind of technology that we're going to either have to send into the customer and have them plug in, or what do they have right there at their fingertips that we can leverage. And so we were able to really come up with a great package of things based on after, talking to our customer. Do you have Zoom? No, I don't. If we sent you the GoPro, are you okay with wearing a GoPro? Yes, we are. How about OWL technology? Are you okay with using OWL technology? So we were able to come up with all these different components to help our customers keep up because they needed us in so many different ways. It wasn't even funny. One of the things we do is we track these medications in trays and these kits in trays. And all of a sudden a COVID-19 tray became essential. And they needed to have this done, like within hours. And so luckily, I will tell you, we've been able to really help out during this pandemic for being able to onboard these folks with these COVID-19 trays quickly with all kinds of technology. And I got to tell you, the hospital healthcare providers have been phenomenally helpful in helping us think through this too.
Incredible.
We're being successful because they're giving us great feedback. And because we are a technology company, we're able to react quickly and help them quickly plug and play and be able to resolve these issues. I will tell you the other thing that we're also going through, which is exciting because we are this high growth company. We're getting ready to close on our capital raise. And when we went for this capital raise, we had a whole different kind of thought process or strategy of how we were going to use this cash to continue our growth. And now, because most of it was going to be probably thrown at really scaling up your commercial organization. Well, now that we can't go in and physically have those kinds of relationships with our hospitals, we've had to step back now and think about how do we want to spend this money and maybe the same way, but maybe also a little bit differently. Are there some unique acquisitions maybe that we should bolt on to our offering right now that would make a whole lot of sense and really be even more essential to our customers? And so those are different things that we're thinking through right now. And it's exciting because, like I said, all this white space that we're able to look at right now and take advantage of with technology it's really been, it's motivated us in so many different ways and really gets us up in the morning excited to go to work because we're able to do and think like that right now.
Yeah. It's interesting how it looked one way before COVID-19, and during the experience of being in the pandemic, it has shifted even further from what you originally conceived of. And I think what you're all describing are ways in which your organizations and you as leaders have been able to respond quickly in the moment to the new information that you're getting. And as Whaley pointed out, that decisiveness, that ability to problem solve and decide real time makes such a difference because some of those windows are open for very short periods of time.
They are. And I don't know if Whaley and Dave, you guys are seeing this too, but again, my team is, I think one of the things that our team is really getting a big high off right now is we're able to help. And they see that, and they see this, this help or this new feature that we're able to bring on board quickly, help these people in times of crisis and need like you can't believe. And it's really validating our team and really, it's really motivating them like you can't believe.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an awesome point. We're seeing that too as well. I think it's maybe easier for us because we're kind of on the front lines of healthcare, but I think it could be true for others that, now is the time to energize people around your mission. Because it's that mission that will get us through the hard work and the 24/7 effort that it requires, that is required to retool something that we were doing in February like this, that we now need to do like this, now that we're coming into May. And so grounding people in our mission has never been more important. And we just recently did an engagement survey, and we've got people, they're working hard and they're feeling it and all that. But with some of the things that we've done in terms of like some of the free programming we've done and things like that, and although it had taken nights and days of just straight out 24/7 work, they're saying that some of the most engaging stuff that they've done, and they're more engaged with the company around those things, even though they're burning the midnight oil, burning it on both ends, they're doing it because it's meaningful. And that connection, man, if we can just continue to do that as leaders, think about what we can do to change the world around us.
Oh gosh, yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah. Wow, that's a wonderful setup actually for the next question, Whaley. So thank you for that. You've looked back a little bit and talked about what has gone on and what is going on now. And we know that you each have unique perspectives given your role in the organization and your ability to not only see out into the marketplace, but to interact with the customers and clients you serve. So we'd love to have you each talk for just a moment about what you see being able to do going forward, given our focus today is really on shaping the new normal. How do you see being able to influence what is going to come in behind COVID-19 as we emerge from our stay-at-home world and transition into whatever the next set of rules might look like? So, Whaley, maybe we'll ask you to start us off with that one.
Yeah, it's a great, it's thought-provoking because within the question, it's like this pivot of change that's happened for the most part in the whole spectrum of time, like in a millisecond, right? We were this, and then we were now this, and this is continuing to change. It's interesting. I think back to something that we've done over the last basically 4 weeks that I'm tremendously proud of the team of. We had a program that was in the process of being pretty successful in the marketplace that It was a digital care solution that matched up kind of technology and the best of technology with our human coaches for stress, anxiety, and depression. Not surprisingly, we picked up on this signal within our own hundreds of thousands of patients that we treat. The number of searches for how do I manage my stress and my anxiety and depression went up tenfold overnight. It was unbelievable. And from that, we immediately pivoted. And basically, long story short, what this ended up was we basically took our program. We realized people's needs were here before, and now they moved over here, given a different context. But our program was still over here. And so we pivoted, recoded, redesigned, and relaunched it essentially in 5 business days. So we went from coding, design, decision, budget, capital, everything to new assets and messaging, and launched literally 5 business days later. I believe that's the clock speed that is required now. I am hopeful and optimistic from an operational leadership standpoint that that same kind of approach or clock speed will occur post when we get into some semblance of the new normal. But I would leave people with kind of 2 things in terms of, when I reflect on what made that possible in terms of pre and post kind of pandemic, is that number 1, we broke down processes and leaders stepped in just autonomously. We basically opened up an entire company Slack channel that was titled like COVID-19 ideas. Everybody just plowed in. There were 3 people or 4 people that met every morning, I believe at like 7:30 in the morning, to triage the ideas. And they triaged them in 3 buckets. 1, do now. 2, do not do. 3, huge, we need to talk to leadership. That one about the behavioral health program, basically we're offering at no cost to basically everybody right now, was one of those big programs. And once that got triggered, then we rejigged all of our operational processes and basically lined up 10 different functions in 10 straight hours and said, at each function, what are you going to do to make sure this thing goes? We codified the plan, boom, went to market in 5 days. And so that kind of resilience and mobility and agility shows people when you're connected to the mission, what you can do. And it's just hugely energizing. And I got to believe this has got to be part of our post-pandemic operating process.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Wow.
That's
an amazing story. Yes.
Slack has been really useful to us too. We did something similar to what you did, Whaley, and it's been really, really good for us too.
Yeah, that's right. This should be a Slack webinar.
Some of those collaborative tools make an incredible difference. Absolutely. Thank you. Dave, how about you? As you look out on the horizon and think about what you've learned and what you're able to bring with you, how do you see helping to shape the new normal going forward?
Yeah, so we're obviously in a different space than some of the other panelists here, but as a organization, we've already, are many steps into the transformation that we're working on. And the way I look at this is that it doesn't really, I say shift our gears. We're already going down the path of better collaboration tools. We were fortunate we had implemented Slack in really December. And so when everybody had to shift for work from home, all of a sudden the Slack adoption went from nascent to pervasive, right? So, so we were already on this path. And what I found is this transformation or this change ultimately just drove, I'd say, an acceleration of some of the practices and processes that were in place. So by way of example, we're already well down this agile path. And so one of the challenges that we've had to embrace as part of shifting our organization is the idea of product teams and business owners and product owners being heavily engaged with our practices, transparent work management practices. So, these were things that we were starting to look at. Well, how does our tooling and structure support these practices? Do we have right workflow tools in place? Do we have the right collaboration tools in place to facilitate the interactions and dialogues that's necessary for that to be successful? And in the implementation of those things, I think we set ourselves up for this work from home. Now, work from home brought a whole brand new set of challenges. Here I've got nascent product owners with nascent engagement with our business, with our technology teams, and we need them to get together and interface on a more regular basis. And what used to maybe just been a verbal conversation or that hallway conversation, was no longer sufficient. The information wasn't persistent enough. It didn't transcend or exist beyond that hallway conversation, which was okay when you can follow up on them 10 minutes later and go, what was that again? I forgot. You mentioned this great idea and I want to carry it to action. And so what we've had to do is really emphasize, bring in the tooling. Make sure that when you have that dialogue, you guys are having a shared Confluence page, that you're documenting decisions and writing down the considerations and keeping that record. So not only the people who are, at diverse locations participating can see that shared content, which is a benefit, but also that person I hire tomorrow. And they come in, how do they catch up and how do they come up to speed? So, some of the practices we started to institute to replace or augment that kind of human-to-human interaction became more important in this kind of distributed world, but I think they make us more resilient and have a better foundation for us as we move forward. So I expect these practices to be not something we just implemented for the highly distributed workforce, but become the normal way that we interface interaction. It's not going to eliminate the human-to-human conversation. We're still going to have those, but now maybe we'll be more cognizant of the individual who happens to be on the WebEx, that historically everyone would forget they're even participating in the call, right? We're all talking to each other and there's somebody else. I don't think that will happen any longer. The use of video has become more predominant. It used to be people would dial in audio only a lot on WebEx calls, and now almost every call includes 100% video representation. And so I expect when we go back into the office space, you'll see a lot more engagement from that. But you may even see people video WebExing from their seated location. They're in the same building, but they're going to video conference in because they don't feel comfortable sitting in a large group yet, which is okay. And we should be supportive of that and enable that and enable the organization to move forward that way. So some of these practices, which maybe become commonplace because of the situation we're in, I expect they're just going to carry forward as kind of the natural evolution of companies is to become more resilient and have greater agility in how they execute day to day.
It's going to be a great test, I think, to see whether or not we're really able to carry some of these practices and integrate them with what we were doing previously. How we're able to bring those two sets of rules together, I think, will be a really great test. Amy, we'd love to have you come in. As you look out on the horizon, what would you say is a role that you intend to play in terms of shaping that new reality for people?
Yeah, no. I agree with, again, what Whaley and Dave had just explained. We too are going through some of those same thought processes. But one of the things that we have noticed is we have a real complex sale, and it requires different kind of stakeholder management, whether it be a pharmacist, a nurse, or an anesthesiologist. Being able to talk over the video to those different stakeholders, it's been challenging for our sales team, I have to say. So we're going to spend a lot of time investing in those soft skills of how you engage with those different kinds of stakeholders via WebEx, and how to be credible when you're in front of those people via WebEx. And the other thing too is as we looked at the buying process and our selling process, we really had to go back and revisit this. And what I mean by that is, again, our sales reps, this was a high touch face-to-face sale in the past, and now we don't think it's going to be that way for a while. And so what we realized, we have this wonderful staff of pharmacists that are PharmDs, they've worked in the hospital, and we said we have really got to bring these folks much more forward in the selling process to gain credibility for our brand. And so we're going to see a lot now with our selling process where the clinician is going to come into this selling process, detailing process much earlier to provide that credibility to the customer on the other side of the camera. And so to us, that's going to be something we're going to invest a lot of time and resources in, because we're seeing right now, what's interesting is everybody is kind of the same right now, right? There's nothing different about you. You don't have that human connection anymore. It's this person behind this video, so to speak, or this camera. So how are you going to differentiate yourself and be really good and sharp to gain that credibility instantly, that they remember you because you are so good at that? So those are some of the things we're going to spend a lot of time talking and really developing.
Yeah, we have different senses available to us given our current situation, and may very well have in the future as well. And I think you're talking about how do we invest in that or enhance that as much as possible when we're limited to, just being able to see and hear people and not have some of those other cues.
Exactly. I mean, because today, if you're in front of a chief of anesthesia, he or she doesn't have a lot of time to spend with you. Now now this person's got to spend time with you, so you got to make it worth their while. You really do.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, I know we've had some questions coming in, and we've had some great responses already from our panelists, and we want to give our listeners an opportunity to bring their voice forward. So Anthony, I'm going to pass the baton to you. Thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you all, our panelists, for such great contributions. We do have a handful of questions for you all, and a few of them are not directed towards anybody, so you all can chime in. Our first question: have any of you seen some leaders rise out of your teams, given our current work from home situation? And have you seen any surprises in terms of leadership rising in this new environment?
I suspect we all have answers to that question. I'll jump in first with one, because I want to make call something out. We have, I don't think leadership is a title or a role. It's how you act day in and day out, and anybody in any organization is capable of being a leader within that organization. And there's a gentleman on one of my teams who not too long ago was an intern. Today he works on our help desk. And so, think about what just happened. All of our staff is now suddenly working from home. They've got new, how do I VPN? How do I connect to my desktop? How do I get my phone to be forwarded? How to do it? And so this individual on help desk, I got to call him out for a couple of things. One is, always was supportive. So in execution of his day-to-day jobs, never an issue, he carried that forward. So that was expected. The part that was remarkable to me is he then established a Slack channel, help desk, and he starts helping people there. I can't tell you how many people swarm to that. And now you ended up finding that a solution for one person carried forward to many others. It made it so that people could self-service, and it made it really a little thing, creating a Slack channel and being responsive there was a transformative way that people interface with our help desk organization. Well, he found himself also finding ways to help other parts of the organization. So our desktop engineering team, they're working through a lot of challenges associated with people's desktops and how they work. And they had a backlog of work that they couldn't seem to get to. Well, this individual was like, well, I'm home and, I'm with my dog, and I wonder if I can pick up their work. And I'm curious what they do over there. So he unsolicitedly reaches out, starts grabbing the work from the other team that they're behind on, starts banging that work out at night. And then the third thing I'll point on him is you go to LinkedIn and you'll see he's constantly posting these new certifications of skills and jobs and roles. So he's crushing it on his assigned job. He's reaching out and getting new work from other departments and helping them with their work, and he's getting certifications nonstop. This gentleman is his impact has been felt at so many levels, to where our CEO on these all-employee conferences is talking about how great our help desk is to the organization. Now, how is that a team that probably could have easily been the quiet, unsung heroes in the behind the scenes are getting the frontline billing as a result of the work doing. And so just so proud of this team member and how he stepped forward and the things he was able to contribute that went far beyond his job description.
Yeah, Dave, what's his name, and can I call him?
Yeah, good point. I'll keep it to myself for now.
Dave, thanks so much for that contribution. Amy, go ahead.
No, I was just going to tell you what I found amazing, and I can actually attest to this right now. Obviously, you can tell I'm an extrovert. I love being around people. My hands are going all over the place. And introverts in our company have been probably so phenomenal on video and talking, because they're just, this is just normal for them, and they're having a conversation. And I'm like doing this. And finally, this one gentleman said to me, again, he's in customer support. He said, "Amy, sit on your hands." And I'm like, wow, all I see is your hands. And so literally now I'm like sitting on my hands as I talk to people, just to practice, to just try and stay composed. So it's been funny to watch the introverts really step up and lead, especially with discussions with our customers too.
I certainly have seen, I know we want to move on probably to the next question, but just real quick, I certainly have seen people step up I've also seen people retract. And I think it's a great opportunity for all of us to engage and find out what's going on, because if they're retracting, maybe it's because they're a caregiver, or they've got, or they've lost their nanny or their au pair or something like that. And so there's a sensitivity and kind of EQ leadership piece there I think is important. My biggest learning, I'm one of those people that always pushes. I've got the next idea. I'm saying, hey, you know, what's the enrollment? It's 500. Oh, can we make 1,000? And like, and when these people that step up and like just shock you in such a positive way, I personally have to check myself and say, make sure that you're not giving them yet another assignment and another assignment and another assignment, because then you burn them out, and that's just not, obviously that's a bad thing. So it's like resisting the urge to give all the important work to those people that are stepping up is, man, it's a hard discipline, especially for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you very much. So we have a question coming in from our LinkedIn community. And this is for Amy and or Whaley. How has the pandemic affected your field sales teams? Do you believe there will be any permanent shifts?
Go ahead, Whaley.
No, Amy, you want to start? You already started talking about it. I thought it was great.
It has affected our sales team quite a bit. From the standpoint of A, am I going to have a job? To B, my pipeline is starting to dwindle. How do I get lead gen going more and more and more? And can I be more involved with that versus maybe marketing was doing more of that in the past? And it's just trying to find relevancy and again, being a valuable player on the team. And we've told them, look, no, you have a job. It's just that your job is going to be different now, and how you engage in the different kind of tools that are going to be in your hands now with your customer. But it's incumbent upon you to become the expert to see that, to make your customer believe in you, whether you are behind the video or you are out in the field. But the chances of you being behind that video are probably going to be more important than being out in the field. So we've really had to coach them up on, again, building that confidence behind video and showing them, if you guys can do that and you do that well, we don't see sales going away because they still need our technology. But yeah, it has affected them in their confidence more so than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a sales organization or a sales leader out there that is not facing the same questions, whether or not there's a sales team that has to furlough or lay off, or a sales team that doesn't because they're busier than ever. It doesn't matter. Their salespeople are still having that same set of questions. I find that a lot of salespeople, their spouses or partners are salespeople. And so everybody knows a salesperson who's been laid off, their quota or whatever, their salary's been cut. And so there's a lot of that psychology going on, and it's just got to be managed. What we've done at Omada and have done on purpose are really kind of three things. The first one's kind of obvious, but it shouldn't be missed, which is this kind of like leadership ear to the ground, back to, getting in the trenches and understanding like, what is actually happening and when is it going to change and is it changing? So for instance, selling requires a customer that's interested in buying. If your customer, for instance, an HR department, in our particular case, in many cases, is busy dealing with the COVID pandemic and trying to like figure out, unfortunately, who to lay off and furlough, you've got to back off a little bit. You've got to be supportive and giving salespeople the okay nod to understand that that's what our customers are going through, and to be there and be supportive and not put that pressure on them to be like customer tone deaf has been really, really important. Knowing that, of course, they will come out and they will become customers once again in the typical sense, especially in the sector that we're in. The second thing is we've spent time and have actually doubled down on process improvement, capability improvement, and training. So, listen, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And so keeping our salespeople busy, we've launched an entire pipeline kind of improvement capability, like lexicon change. And we've just overhauled the whole thing during this period of time of COVID, where you'd think that'd be the last thing you do. And I was like, no, let's push on, press forward, because now we've got the mind share of our salespeople to do this right. The third thing is that, I mentioned earlier, we launched our kind of mental health or behavioral health offering, and repositioned it. And to be honest with you, this has been fascinating because it's been a lesson of that. If we don't think about where people's heads, attitudes, and beliefs have gone in terms of how they think about purchasing, and we haven't pivoted our products, then we will have some of the unworked or like salespeople sitting around doing nothing. So the best thing we can do is think about how do we shift the relevance of our product from here to here, knowing that the environment is switched from here to here, and change and reposition our products. And now our salespeople are busier than ever because we.
Oh, I think we lost you, Whaley.
Yeah.
We can't get Whaley. We'll wait for Whaley to come back, hopefully. While we do so, I've got one last question for the panel, and we're going to do this in a bit of a quick fashion here. So in 30 seconds or less, and there's a good question from the Zoom room. What would be one piece of advice for emerging leaders as we transition to the new normal? And we'll go around the horn, 30 seconds or less. What's the one nugget you can offer our community? And maybe we'll start with you, Amy.
Don't make it complicated. Common sense prevails here. Trying to be the superhero and try and figure out, 24 months from now. Right now, people need you in the moment. So again, common sense and take it day by day.
Thank you, Amy. How about Dave?
Yeah, I think, there's going to be no shortage of opportunities for people to step up and lead. Don't be shy. If you're uncertain what to do, ask somebody for how you can help and reach for that ring. I think too often folks step back and kind of wait for the information to come to them. Now's the time to always be reaching out and finding ways you can contribute, because I guarantee those opportunities are there for you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Whaley, hopefully we've got you back. What's one nugget you can offer, piece of advice you can offer our community?
Yeah, so I would say don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness. Make the call, be autonomous, move forward, and ask for forgiveness later, because the speed at which we are moving right now requires people to just step up and make a judgment call.
Wow, that's wonderful. Thank you all for your responses to that question and for the incredible dialogue throughout this hour. I first want to thank everybody who's joined this discussion. So for those of you who have joined our virtual roundtable through the Zoom webinar, we really appreciate you being a part of it live. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. I know there were a few that we weren't able to handle today, but we'll make sure that the panelists get them after. We also want to thank those in our LinkedIn community, our Facebook community, and our YouTube community for joining us for this discussion. I want to give a special thanks to Amy, Whaley, and Dave for stepping into the discussion, for offering your insights, your perspective, and also your authenticity as leaders. That always makes these discussions extremely valuable for the folks who have joined. So thank you very much. As always, Kathy, thank you very much for your facilitation.
Thanks, Anthony.
We
we
finally would just like to share that we are kicking off a new 4-part series next week for Navigating Now. And the next 4 episodes will really be focused on our new commercial model. And we're going to go deeper into each aspect of the commercial organization. We're going to talk to leaders about how they see different functions of our commercial teams shifting, transforming, pivoting as we work through the current environment. So we really encourage you all to join us. Next week, we are here live every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. You can view any of the previous episodes, and you can register for any of our future episodes at Thoughtium.com/live. Again, to our panelists, thank you very much. To our community, we look forward to bringing you these discussions and many more on an episode by episode basis. Thank you all, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.